With the likes of Devil May Cry and Blood Will Tell on the PlayStation 2, players were never at a loss when it came to looking for new hack and slashers to play. But one game that never really got its chance in the spotlight was Chaos Legion. It saw you taking on the role of Siege. Armed with little more than a glowing sword, divine magic, and a flowing cape, you have to wander through medieval Europe and annihilate all the demons roaming the countryside. It's not going to be easy, however. The enemies in Chaos Legion are some of the most aggravatingly die-hard foes you'll ever encounter. Luckily, Siege has got a few tricks up his sleeve that make these battles all the more manageable. You've got a standard attack which can be used to create combos and link together several of his more devastating special moves. That's not all though, as one of the main aspects of the game all revolves around entities known as legions. They essentially play the role of a summon and allow the player to set them on enemies, which really helps out once the action starts to heat up. There's quite a diversity of them as well, spanning from explosive fireballs to sharpshooting archers. Then of course there is the strongest legion in the game, whose name, Thanatos, literally means personification of death, and rightfully so. He's able to smack around all the enemies on the screen at once and clear entire bosses without batting an eye. Constantly juggling between your standard combos and the use of these legions allows the combat system to flourish, and for those that take their time to learn the intricacies of the way it works, you'll be rewarded with some of the flashiest gameplay you'll see on the console. Sure, the story is cliched beyond belief, the characters are completely forgettable, and maybe the presentation could have been executed a bit better, but when you look at the whole picture, Chaos Legion will definitely not disappoint with its formidable gameplay that more than makes up for any shortcoming. Originally released for the Sega Dreamcast and eventually making its way to both the GameCube and PlayStation 2, Code Veronica is one of the most highly requested remakes in the Resident Evil series. This was the first mainline release to stray from pre-rendered backgrounds and instead depicting its world and characters in full 3D. It was a bit of a controversial move at the time, which no doubt contributed to its muted success when compared to other games in the franchise. It once again saw you taking up the fight as Claire Redfield as she travels to an island in Europe in the hopes of finding her brother Chris. In true Resident Evil fashion, it's not long until everything goes to shit, resulting in the player having to traverse a hazardous environment bursting with undead nightmares. Thankfully, scattered across the island are various weapons and other items that make the onslaught of enemies and other grotesque creations all the more manageable. Of course, it's not all just about simply mowing down everything that moves, as an equal amount of exploration and puzzles make up the game as well. Sure, some of the puzzles may have the potential to annoy players, but they've always been a huge part of the games, and to be fair, in Code Veronica, there's nothing that's going to hinder your progress completely, as everything is pretty self-explanatory. Even though the game holds up pretty well by today's standards, seeing it recreated in the RE engine would be incredible, especially because this one has always felt like the black sheep of the franchise and would benefit most from the upgrade. And even though it's available on nearly every modern platform now, taking it into the over-shoulder perspective of the later games is something I would love to see, as would many fans. But if it never happens, at least the original is easy to jump into and enjoy. Bully all revolves around a boy known as Jimmy Hopkins, who after being expelled from several other schools is sent to a boarding academy filled with vicious bullies, all monitors waiting to bust you, and an oblivious and apathetic staff. It's not easy surviving in the school. Lucky, Jimmy's got a plan which involves taking over the popular groups of students and rallying them to his cause of complete mayhem. From a gameplay perspective, if you're at all familiar with the Grand Theft Auto games, you'll instantly feel right at home with the academy itself as well as the surrounding city, offering up an open environment for you to explore, either on foot or using one of the many skateboards or bikes you'll find about the environment. Now, in order to get the students on your side, you'll have to complete the many different types of missions, which range from the humorous to downright absurd at points. One mission has you escorting a nerd to his locker while fending off bullies who try to beat him up. Another has you taking pictures of a Grease's girlfriend cheating on him with one of the students. And the insanity does not stop there, as beside the story missions, Bully is chock full of minigames. You can mow lawns, take a paper route, participate in boxing matches, take part in bike or go-kart races, and much more. There is so much content in this game. By completing these extra tasks, you'll be able to earn money and unlock clothing and other items that will help increase your stats. Bully also encourages you to go to class, as each of your classes is its own minigame as well, which unlock or increase Jimmy's abilities. Bully could easily be viewed as a toned-down version of Grand Theft Auto, but what it lacks in crime-committing capabilities, it makes up for in terms of pranks pranks, and other fun stuff to do that bring back the memories of school days. It doesn't pay to be a bully in real life, but this game is another story. If there is one word that could sum up Ico, it would have to be simplicity. The premise of a cursed boy helping an equally cursed girl through a fortress of decay and beauty is one of pure delight and ease. There's no cheesy, complicated story to follow with cutscenes that make you wear down your X button, no messy inventory screen, and no flashy combos to learn and match. Starting with the intriguing opening, we are given a boy with horns who is brought to a castle-like fortress, and who is cast away from others to be sacrificed for the good of them. Through opportunity, the boy Ico escapes and meets another captive in a female named Yoda. The modest ways of moving forward with Yoda involve flipping switches and moving boxes, but some of the more imaginative ones can involve quite a bit of platforming, and in some instances use of explosives to lead Yoda along the right path. A more formidable challenge comes in an evil queen who is trying to stop the escape. Her presence can be felt throughout the entire game in the form of creatures of shadow who will stop at nothing to try and kidnap Yoda. You can help Yoda though by either quickly pulling her from the darkness if she gets caught, or in the preemptive manner of using a small selection of weapons to bash the shadows. Not only do these weapons aid you in battle, but they can also be useful in puzzle solving, such as lighting your lumber stick with fire to light other objects, and using the sword to cut down ropes that hinder your progress. Despite the disappointingly short adventure, Ico is without a doubt one of the more intriguing games on the PlayStation 2. The minimalist approach and stunning atmosphere elevates the game above many others available on the console. However, the game would have been more unique if the puzzles didn't involve so many damn boxes and levers. But despite that issue, the tale of Ico and Yoda is one that needs to be experienced if you're open and looking for something different. Coming from the same mind that brought us the likes of Resident Evil and PNO3, God Hand was Shinji Mikami's stab at the beat-em-up genre, and for the most part the team succeeded by creating one of the most unique games you'll find on the PlayStation 2. The first thing that'll strike players is the sense of humour that permeates the entire game. From spanking enemies to death to fighting poison chihuahuas, this is a game which is not afraid to have fun. As the player, you take on the fight as Jin, a man known worldwide for his incredible fighting skills and his ability to wield the God Hand. The core concept revolves around how you can customize Jin's move list from over 100 different punches, kicks, chops, and other such maneuvers that you can buy, win from enemies, or sometimes you just find if you're willing to look for them. From these 100 plus moves, you're free to set up Jin's main combo, as well as set other attacks to other buttons, such as your sweeps, guard breakers, and possible uppercuts. Needless to say, this engine gives the player a lot of depth in creating their own setups which suit their own personal playstyles, and as a result offers near endless possibilities for those looking to experiment. Unfortunately, the camera can be a bit of a nuisance at times. Since it's zoomed in so close to Jin, you'll have a hard time seeing anything that's going on behind you or to your sides. Luckily, there's a radar that shows the enemy's positions, so it reduces the frustration of that problem somewhat. God Hand is one of those games that will either leave you shaking your head in disappointment or sitting on the edge of your seat begging for more. It functions well as a beat-em-up, and it possesses the same charm that games like Final Fight and River City Ransom used to enjoy. On the other hand, the basic level design, repetitive enemies, and occasionally frustrating camera are far below the standards of what you'd expect of a PS2 game. For this reason alone, I think it thoroughly deserves a remake for modern consoles, but if that never comes to pass, it is easy to look past the issues. Onimusha released quite early on during the PlayStation 2's lifecycle and was Capcom's first crack at taking Resident Evil's gameplay and applying it to a completely different premise. Instead of cleaning up the streets of Raccoon City, you were instead transported to feudal Japan and straight into the shoes of a samurai known as Samanosuke. The story sees you trying to rescue a princess who was taken by some pretty sketchy demons, so it's up to you and your sword, along with the power of a very special gauntlet to put things right. Now, the similarities with Resident Evil will instantly become apparent for anyone who has played the series. First and foremost are the tank controls, which in my opinion actually add to the game in a positive way, as opposed to full 3D movement. A majority of Onimusha's gameplay revolves around combat and collecting items and weapons. Samanosuke starts off with his default sword, a weapon that is average in strength and speed. Getting further into the game, you'll get to utilize your gauntlet Gauntlet, which allows you to collect a variety of souls from fallen enemies, which harness the strength of different elements. With the use of souls captured from defeated demons, you can upgrade your weapons, magic, herbs, and arrows to different strengths, which is essential for some of the more challenging enemies you'll be facing later on. Along with Onimusha's fast-paced action, you will also have to solve a range of puzzles in order to attain items for your quest, and this is where a lot of the unlockable content comes into play, mainly in the form of secret costumes and minigames that add immensely to the game's length. Although it did get a re-release not so long ago, it would be good to see it fully remade for modern hardware, so everyone can enjoy where the series all began in a new way. Mortal Kombat has always been one of the most popular fighting series, with many games spanning from the Super Nintendo right up to this day on the PlayStation 5. As with most long-standing franchises, there's always a few games which dared to try something different, and even though they missed the mark a couple of times, Shaolin Monks got it right and proved that there was life in the series outside of the fighting game genre. It's essentially a beat-em-up that takes place after the events of the first game and sees Liu Kang and Kung Lao teaming up to combat the forces of Outworld. The game has a free-form combo system that allows any attack mapped to any button to be combined in any way, and also allows special moves to be linked in as well. These combos are only limited by your imagination, and can range from just on-ground fighting to juggling the enemy in the air to jumping on top and throwing them into spikes and other environmental hazards. While you're performing all these combos, you are constantly earning experience to upgrade your character. You can purchase new combos, new special moves, and new variations of a certain special attack. For instance, for Kung Lao you start out with his normal half throw, but can choose to upgrade it so you can spin it around your body as a shield. It's these little touches that make Shaolin Monks combat so rewarding and an absolute blast to play. In true Mortal Kombat fashion, the game is bursting with secrets and unlockable content such as extra modes, and even a way to play through the game as other Mortal Kombat characters you might have encountered throughout the story. To sum it up, this is a great game which can keep you entertained for a long time. If you're a fan of Devil May Cry, God of War, or even if you just like Mortal Kombat, this is definitely a game for you. Rogue Galaxy is the gold standard when it comes to RPGs on the PlayStation 2. Sure, you've got Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Grandia to contend with, but Rogue Galaxy was in a league of its own, largely due to its lush and inviting visuals that work to portray believable worlds in which to explore and get to know. The story sees you playing as Jaster Rogue, a young man living on an enslaved desert planet that suddenly comes under attack by beasts. Events play out that result in Jaster joining a group of space pirates who set out to try and get to the bottom of why their village was destroyed. Don't get me wrong, the opening of the story is a bit cliche, but the journey soon opens up and flourishes into one of the grandest adventures you'll ever play. Now, I could gush over the story for days, but if the gameplay didn't back it up, it would all mean nothing. But it's here where Rogue Galaxy cements itself as a game you will not want to miss. When wandering around the game's map, you'll run into random encounters with an assortment of enemies that all possess their own unique threats. Overall, the fighting system is pretty polished, as you can control any party member at any time, and since each individual member has their own unique weapons and sub-weapons, you have quite a few choices in how to play. Some enemies require certain attacks to kill, such as charge attacks or jumping attacks, with some even requiring the use of a special gun to break their shields. This aspect of the combat serves to constantly keep the player on their toes, and when you throw in elemental weaknesses as well, the battle system soon becomes one of the deepest you'll ever experience in any RPG. Beyond combat, there's a ton of side quests and extras in the game to get stuck into that pads out the experience, but in meaningful ways. While it may not be the most original game you'll ever play, the execution helps greatly offset the lack of originality. This is a truly fun game with a lot going for it that deserves a full remake for modern consoles. When it comes to first-person shooters, the PlayStation 2 played host to many enjoyable takes on the genre, such as time-splitters and heavy hitters like Medal of Honor. One lesser-known title that really deserves a modern remake would have to be Darkwatch, mainly due to its masterful blend of steampunk and western influences that make it up. The year is 1876, and you play as the seasoned outlaw Jericho Cross, who's looking to score big by robbing a train. Unbeknownst to him though, the train is owned by an ancient organization committed to defeating defeating supernatural evils. The cargo of this train is not money or jewels, but a captured vampire lord, and after opening the vault, you're promptly bitten and overtaken by a curse. The bad is that it's eventually going to kill you, but the good is that in the meantime, you're given supernatural powers. If you can slay the vampire before the curse consumes you completely, you might just win back your soul. Thankfully, Jericho has got an immense amount of weaponry to help get the job done. From crossbows to shotguns and rocket launchers, you'll never be at a loss for options when it comes to slaying each wave of enemies. Of course, your vampire powers have also got a role to play, but the best thing about them is that the player gets to choose which to pursue and learn through the use of a morality system. If you choose to be good, you are given one set of vampire powers. If you choose to be evil, you get the other set. And there's so much variation to these powers that you'll probably want to play through at least twice to see everything the good and evil paths have to offer. If there was one bad thing to say about the game, it would be that it's just over too soon. Experienced players will likely hit the credits in under 5 hours, but with multiple difficulties, various powers, 2 different endings, as well as several unlockables, there's plenty of reasons to jump back in once you're finished. Haunting Ground is a sort of spiritual successor to the Clock Tower series and introduces players to Fiona Belly, a teenager who finds herself trapped in a castle's dungeon. It's not long until she realizes that the inhabitants of the castle have plans for her and none of them are of good intention. The biggest way Haunting Ground conveys fear to the player is the way in which Fiona herself is extremely vulnerable. There's no guns here or special powers that will save you. It's just you and the enemies hunting you down. Of course, you've got a few ways to survive, with the main one being to run as fast as you can and utilize hide spots such as underneath beds when enemies are trying to find you. There is one more way to counteract the enemies, and that's your trusty companion Huey. In the early parts of the game, you'll come across a seemingly abandoned dog who soon goes on to become one of the main aspects of the gameplay. As well as being cute, Huey is an absolute good boy who listens to every command Fiona asks of him, may that be chasing down enemies or collecting hard to reach items, but this friendship also hangs in the balance depending on your actions. If you're nice to Huey, he will treat you with respect and gratitude in return. If you beat him senselessly, he may attack you or ignore your commands. This is why you must keep Huey at a balanced level of stability by treating him kindly, such as petting him for his good deeds or feeding him when he is injured by the villains. It's such a great aspect of the game and really pushes a believable relationship between the two throughout the journey. With 4 different endings, several unlockable costumes and plenty of secrets, Haunting Ground offers up a generous amount of things to collect and several reasons to carry on playing the game once you've completed it once. With it all but forgotten these days, it would make a perfect choice for Capcom's next game to get remade. Well, that does it for today's video. Keep an eye out for part 2 as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos and share the show with your friends. You can follow me on all of the socials which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters Rhino, Skill Jim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Paul, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman and Paddy J for the continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining my Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.